It's often when night looks darkest, it's often before the fever breaks that one senses the gathering momentum for change, when one feels that resurrection of hope in the midst of despair and apathy. With this quote from the former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, he welcomed to the gavel Linda Kibe. A dark week it was indeed for FCT residents and Nigerians at large when we experienced one of the most shocking and inhuman incidents, the bombing of a Nyanya Motor Park, which left 75 people dead and over 140 injured. After the bomb blast, some federal lawmakers went to the site of the explosion to see the level of destruction. It's a slow drive on the Abuja-Kefi Expressway, where Monday's bomb blast at the Nyanya Motor Park occurred. The military has set up a checkpoint on the road to inspect vehicles coming into the capital city. This is causing a traffic gridlock on the road. 3 days after a huge explosion killed 75 people and injured dozens at the Nyanya Motor Park in Abuja, residents have to live with heightened security presence in the city. The Nyanya Motor Park still bears the signs of destruction. Government officials continue to visit the motor park to see the level of destruction.
On our part, we will look at the possibility of ensuring that now that we are still working on the FCT statutory budget, we're going to make enough funding for security. We're going to ensure that virtually in all parks and major commercial centers of the city, we have cameras that can capture movement of people and action of people. Cameras that will be far above what anybody can tamper with.
I have brothers and cousins amongst them, and in whatever name and in whatever sin and in whichever means this, whoever did this, I want to say, and I repeat, this is man's inhumanity to man, because it should never have happened, and it shouldn't happen, and it should never happen.
Federal lawmakers also visited the injured at the National Hospital.
This money is meant to be shared to those of them in the hospital, whether they are fed or they meet their medical requirements. They have children at home, they have wives at home. So please just be talking of one. I feel completely dehumanized that we're going through this kind of challenge as a country. That a country that valued human life more than anything before is going through this kind of bestiality. So it is completely unacceptable. We must come together as a nation to fight this evil.
The leader of the House of Representatives is also worried about the fate of school children in the troubled Northeast.
I'm sure you heard also that over 80 have been found. So we're just praying that the remaining 8, will be, found wherever they are. And I'm sure after this incident, no girl or no child will be left in school until the insurgence is over. I don't think they should be in school by now.
Monday's explosion at the Nyanya Motor Park is a reminder to residents of the Federal Capital Territory and Nigeria at large that the war on terrorism is far from over. As residents of the FCT are still trying to get over Monday's bomb explosion at the Nyanya Motor Park, we spoke with the chairman, Senate Committee on FCT, Senator Smart Adeyemi, to see what steps the committee is taking to improve security in the Federal Capital City. Now, distinguished Senator, you chair the Senate Committee on FCT, and on Monday we had a rather unfortunate event happened right in the FCT, the Nyanya bomb blast, which claimed over 75 lives and injured many others. What specific steps would you, members of your committee, do to improve security in the FCT?
Well, I want to begin by sympathizing with the victims and the family of those who died in the last blast in Nyanya. It was most unfortunate, been condemned, and I joined other Nigerians in condemning it. So it was really uncalled for. But having said this, let me say that we are still working on the statutory budget of the FCT. It's yet to be passed. The incident in Abuja last week in Nyanya, just about 48 hours ago now, is going to probably delay the budget for about 1 or 2 weeks when we resume. The essence is we want to look at the allocation for security again. This time around, we're going to be a bit specific in the security votes. We're going to let the executive get to appreciate the need to provide security cameras, not just the way it was provided in time past, but security cameras that will go beyond anybody tampering with. And more sophisticated cameras will be put in place in strategic locations, especially where you have commercial activities like the motor parks, the mall, and the mall. All those areas where you have hundreds and thousands of people moving around in Abuja, we're going to position security cameras. And this time around, we're going to provide funds for 24-hour surveillance on those cameras. Having said this, let me say that you will recall that the last time we had of any blast in Abuja was quite some months now, maybe over a year now, So that was due to the fact that the FCT administration have equally been working on security. There are quite a number of things they've been doing without making public, of which I am privileged to know as the Senate Committee Chairman. And we have equally provided a lot of support for the security organizations in the FCT to empower them to be able to police the FCT well. And that probably accounts for why we had a long period of peace in FCT. What happened was most unfortunate, but we're going to do everything possible to make sure that we intensify surveillance by providing more fund and making sure that the fund is spent for the specific purpose that they are meant for. That I can assure will be done in the next few weeks.
Now, you spoke about security cameras, and I know that this is not the first time we've had surveillance cameras bought for the FCT. I spoke recently with a law enforcement officer who did not want to be named, and he said half of those cameras are not working, that many of them were actually substandard cameras.
Well, I do know that some of them are working, some of them are not working. What we intend to do this time around is that as representative of the people, we're going to get much more involved in the procurement and in the process of the award of this project, these cameras. One other thing which I will want to add is, you see, Abuja is ever increasing, it's ever expanding. And don't forget too that uncountable number of people troop into this city on an hourly basis. People who left troubled states are now back to Abuja. And even those who are from relatively peaceful states are equally trooping to Abuja to find source of livelihood. So you can probably appreciate why we have some of these problems we're encountering with. But as regards the cameras and the safety, the functionability of these cameras, I think this time around is going to be a different ballgame. I can assure you and assure members of the public that the next set of cameras that's going to be put in place, our committee will get involved to make sure that it's the right cameras that are purchased, and we're going to equally get involved to know the procedures of which these cameras will be awarded to who will do the execution, the company that will do the execution. We must make sure that they are highly qualified people who will bring us the best of the cameras that are available. We cannot afford to allow this situation to continue. But again, like I said, the security cameras are very good, they're important, but equally important is the security men that we have. We must make sure that they are properly equipped and they are fully mobilized and encouraged to do the job. This we're going to do in the 2014 statutory budget.
Now, I want to point out this issue. How effective can these surveillance cameras be in Nigeria when we don't have a database of Nigerians. It's one thing to have security cameras, and another thing to have database for which you can even, use the information from the cameras.
Well, I'm aware that the National Identity Card project is ongoing, even at the national level, at the National Assembly. The hearing room beside the opposite, adjacent to the press center in the National Assembly is where the registration is going on. But let me add to that, even in the developed nations where you have data, where you have statistics backing up with the data that they have, they still run into problems of arresting people. What is important is for us to get the cameras first in place. Why I say this is, no matter the data that you have, there's a saying that pictures don't tell lies, although when they are not manipulated. But once you have a camera in place, you can now place the picture across the length and breadth of the country. And within 2-3 hours, you can send the pictures on handset of people. Please look for so person. It's much easier now, okay, because technology is is ever improving. And once we have this camera in place, I think that is fundamental to all other requirements towards policing the FCT.
Now, another problem, there's a major problem we've noticed in the FCT. It appears, it seems as if infrastructure is limited to the city center, which is rather, which is very curious, bearing in mind that you have 20% of FCT residents stay in the city center, and 80% of residents stay in the satellite towns across the city. How would your committee confront this challenge?
Well, don't forget that the FCT committee is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that money voted in the budget is spent for the purpose for which they were meant for. In essence, ours is to carry out the oversight function, making sure that the policy are obeyed and implemented and projects are executed as provided for in the budget. But having said that, let me say this, that as far as we are concerned, we know we have a responsibility towards putting some structures in place for the smooth running and the security of life and properties of the people of the FCT. We have a bill which have gone through the first and second reading, which are sponsored, the Satellite Town Development Agency. Now we don't have an agency established by law. The agency they have there is just by administrative pronouncement, so that they are limited to the scope of what they can do. In essence, there's no law that appropriates specific sum of money for the development of the satellite town. Now, the bill has gone through the second reading. We have had the public hearing. So it's for the bill to come back to the Senate for passage. And I'm equally aware that in the House of Reps, they have a similar bill that is going through legislative process. Now, this bill, when it's passed into law as an act of parliament, is going to provide all the structures to manage these satellite towns. For instance, we'll be able to say annually, this is what must be voted to meet the needs and the development of this satellite town.